Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos, and let's jump right in. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 ways that you can start improving your leadership skills and becoming a better communicator. If that interests you, stick around and let's dive in. So, tip number 1, if you are someone who is a leader, an aspiring leader, if you're in the workplace and you just want to be better, do better, and get recognized for being better, the first thing that you really need to do to improve your communication skills is improve the way that you listen. So rather than talk, learn to remain silent and listen. Most people jump in. Most people interrupt others. Most people want to show that they're smart and they know, they have an opinion, they want to show that value. And so they interrupt people, they interject, they cut people off, and they just share what they want to share. And the reason that this doesn't work is because the other person doesn't feel heard. The other person doesn't feel validated. Quite frankly, the other person starts to get annoyed. So if you're someone who in the workplace, depending on how big your team is, if you are always interrupting other people, you're going to develop that reputation. And other people aren't going to enjoy talking to you, just quite frankly. If you're in a team meeting and you are always interrupting others, people are going to go into that meeting anticipating not enjoying that interaction with you. Okay? So let's get that out of the way. Learn to listen. What that means is when someone else is talking, give them the respect and the courtesy to fully finish their thought. Okay? I know it is hard at first. For many people, when they think of a reaction, when they think of something that they would like to say in response, that initial urge is to just jump in and say it before you forget. So you really need to train yourself to listen better and to fight that urge to interrupt and contribute. Learn to put your thoughts on the back burner and just leave it in your mind so that you can give the other person the full respect and the full attention to finish their thought. Bonus tip, if you really want to be a better communicator, when they're finished speaking, give them 1, 2, 3 seconds of silence without jumping in, and that will let them either show you that they're finished and respect the fact that you have listened, or it will give them the perfect opportunity to clarify anything or add additional details that they didn't initially include. Okay? So either way, sitting there, attentively listening, and giving them that moment to wrap up their thoughts is a massive, massive trait that is valued. Okay? I cannot state it enough. Learning this skill will change the nature of your conversations and your relationships. So the fact that you'll learn how to be silent and listen will change the way that you're seen as a communicator, right? Counterintuitive, but it works. As a side note, I do have an entire masterclass on active listening where I deep dive into how to actually become a better active listener. I'll link it in the description if you're interested in that. Okay. Number 2, if you want to really improve the way that you show up as a leader at work, you need to learn to ask better questions. Okay? The quality of your intellect is often judged based on the quality of the questions you ask. Now, I don't want to say that there's such a thing as stupid questions, but there is such a thing as superficial questions and deeper questions. Okay? It's okay to ask clarifying questions. It's good to ask questions when you don't understand something. But if you'd like to improve the way that you're communicating with others, think of it in the context of when you are having conversations one-on-one or in a group setting. When you are following up with a question, it shows that you are taking interest, it shows that you understood, and it shows that you care, that you genuinely want to understand more about the other person's perspective. So going back to point 1 about learning to listen, that is adding so much value to the interaction and the conversation with very minimal actual communication. Okay? So learn to ask better questions. What does this mean? Number 1, learn to ask open-ended questions. Okay? Open-ended questions, think of the who, what, where, why, how. Questions that really allow the other person to elaborate and expand on their points and their thoughts and to give you more detail. Yes or no questions aren't the best for this because they're very restrictive. So, sure, of course, there always will be cases where yes or no questions are needed. But in the context of listening, in the context of having one on one or small group interactions, asking better open ended questions will really go a long way in showing that you are listening, you are valuing what they're saying, and you're critically thinking about what is being said, which again are all positive traits that people want to see in a leader. Okay? So asking open-ended questions, the who, what, where, why, how, in a way that is really getting more information out of the individual about the situation. So let's say someone is talking to you and they're explaining a problem that they're having. Okay? They're stuck, they're not sure what to do, they can't think of the solution, they need some support. Asking them something like, okay, why'd you do this? Isn't always the best way because number one, it comes off as judgmental, and number two, it makes them defensive, and number three, then they have to justify their actions. Okay? Versus asking a question of something along the lines of, well, how would you proceed moving forward? What are your thoughts about the next steps? Where's your mind at in terms of what you think is the best, route moving forward? Hey, this is going on. Did you learn anything from this that you can share with me so that I can avoid the same mistake or that we can be on the same page moving forward? These kind of open ended questions, the key to them being successful is that they are neutral and coming from a place of genuine care and value rather than a place of judgment or criticism. Especially when, in the context of something not going well or someone experiencing some kind of issue, it is easy to jump into criticism and judgment and why would you do this? Why did this happen? What were you thinking? How could you possibly let this happen? Sure, those are open ended questions, but those are judgmental and critical. And those are not the qualities of a good leader and an effective communicator. So start paying attention to the types of questions that you're asking people. Or if I was to back up, are you asking questions? Are you asking open-ended questions, right? So over the next several days, as you're having conversations with your colleagues, your coworkers, your team, maybe even your family to start, pay attention. Are you asking people questions or are you just waiting for them to finish talking so you can say what you want to move on? Are you just waiting to make your point to show that you're smart or are you actually interested in what the person has to say and what the person is experiencing? That's the distinction between someone and a good leader. Okay? All right. Point number 3. If you would like to develop your leadership skills, learn to stop complaining. I know, trigger alert. This is going to be a hard one for many people because number one, most people don't even realize how often they complain. Okay? It's a toughie. People complain naturally. People complain all the time. People complain as a way to vent, but more importantly, people complain because they are looking to form a connection. Why do people complain to others? Why do you complain to others? Because you're looking for that connection with them. You want to build some kind of rapport and relationship with them. You want to bond over this thing that isn't going well. You want their sympathy, their empathy. You want them to tell you how strong you are or how hard you're working or to really recognize some aspect of you through this hardship that you're experiencing. But as a leader or as an aspiring leader, walking around complaining, walking around trying to get that sympathy or that recognition from others isn't going to go over well. Okay? People don't like to be complained to. People don't like to be around someone who's complaining all the time. It's a double-edged sword. We all complain, but no one wants to be around someone who's complaining. Okay? So it's important to catch yourself and work on not complaining, work on reframing things. If something isn't going well and you feel the need to vent, can you do it in a way where you are proactively looking for solutions, where you are looking for alternative perspectives, where you are brainstorming and problem solving rather than simply venting about a problem that you're experiencing? Okay? That's the distinction that I want you to think about. So again, Over the next several days, you're going to spend some time really reflecting and paying attention when you are talking to other people. Are you listening or are you interrupting? Are you giving them the courtesy to finish their thought, or are you waiting to jump in and say what you want to say to show that you're smart? How often are you asking questions? Are you asking questions at all? Are you asking open ended questions, or are you asking questions that are judgmental? Okay. And number three, how often are you complaining to people? How often are you venting? Venting seems like a much nicer way to go about it than complaining, but be real with yourself. Be honest. How often are you complaining? And more importantly, how are others reacting to you when you're complaining? As I said, a lot of people want to have that sympathy and build that rapport and get that recognition. But be honest with yourself and pay attention to how people react to you. Are they giving you that sympathy and that recognition, or are they just getting annoyed? Are they seeing you as someone who's capable of handling the problem, the challenge, the hardship that you're complaining about? Or are they seeing you as someone who's maybe a little weak, as someone who doesn't have the critical thinking skills to overcome this problem, right? It's a brutal truth, but it's a brutal truth that I think you need to hear. Because being honest with yourself about what you're doing and why is the very foundation of creating long lasting change for yourself. Without understanding why you're doing certain behaviors, it becomes that much harder to actually change them and to change them long term and to replace them with better behaviors. Because when you understand why something works and why something is more effective, it becomes that much easier to implement it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below and let me know what your biggest breakthrough was. And if you are someone who listens, asks questions, and tries not to complain. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.